Let's talk dogs.
Hell yeah.
Dukes and Bell on the sidelines with the dogs.
Going to get rid of divisions in the SEC. Strong indications of that. Does that mean a ninth conference game? Does that mean, my God, Georgia's schedule next year is just an embarrassment?
Yeah, it's not their fault. They were supposed to play Oklahoma, which would have beefed it up, and then the SEC said you got to take Oklahoma off the roster, off the schedule, because we're going to now recalibrate all of the new SEC scheduling moving forward when Texas and Oklahoma come here.
I still don't understand. Why would that have any effect? So what?
Talk to Slive and his boys over there in Hoover. That was the mandate.
Well,
So
because
they-
Oklahoma coming to Athens 2 years in a row or something? I mean, come on.
Whatever the rotation was, they said that. So anybody who had existing games with somebody like that was now on the outs.
You know, I'm probably naive, and I've been known to be, but this sounds like a cop-out to me. They make the scheduling sound far more complicated than Eisenhower organizing the D-Day invasion.
I'm with you. And I get it. And Georgia will now. The good news is whether you're breaking in, whether it's going to be Vandegrift or it's going to be
Carson Beck.
whoever your quarterback is, you pick your guy. And certainly you could argue that the new offensive coordinator has got a pretty good relationship, Mike Bobo does, with Gunnar Stockton.
Right.
But you've still got a relatively easy way to kind of lean into it. And I will say this in Georgia's defense: for years, the former Florida athletic director Jeremy Foley had absolute cupcakes. There was a MAC team, there was a directional school, and Florida would do that all the time under Spurrier and then under Urban Meyer. So you don't have to.
Saban does it now. Their penultimate regular season game.
Right.
The one before the Iron Bowl.
Yeah. And look, for many years, you could argue that it's not Georgia's fault that Georgia Tech didn't have their house in order. Now, I believe Brent Key is going to have something to say about that, and I think the future is going to be bright on the flats with football. But getting back to this initial point, the only hang-up in the short term is to go to a 9-game. You won't get 9 games this year because there's no money in it for them. They've got their TV contract. They're going to move some numbers on the TV contract because why play an extra quality game on the schedule and not get any extra loot for it?
Okay, well.
What do you think now? Are you cool with Alabama playing Georgia, let's say the year that it does come up, because you're going to have your 3 natural rivals, and Georgia would, let's say the year they go to Tuscaloosa, they beat them. Now they got to rematch them if they finish 1-2 in the SEC.
Big deal, good. That's 2 good games I know I'm going to get to see probably.
Correct.
Hard-fought, close games. I don't care if you play them twice.
And the good news for Georgia, and I apologize for Vanderbilt fans, nobody wants to see you. The only thing Vanderbilt's good for is a road game because you get to party in Nashville. Yeah. That's it.
And they're only good for baseball, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great baseball program and occasionally a good basketball program. And they do put guys in the NFL, but that's, you know what they're
They
up
benefit
against.
from the largesse of the SEC.
Correct. So are you happy with this, though? I'd said just go right to 10. I'd like
Why
go
not?
right to 10,
right
but they
to
won't
10.
do that.
No. And I know now you're seeing, cupcake teams winning games. I understand that. Georgia Southern, I believe, got Scott Frost fired. We saw what happened last year.
Right.
Marshall, went to Notre Dame and won. And who was it that went to Texas A&M and won? Who was that? That was one of those small schools. So I get it. It happens a little bit more often now, but nobody wants to see those games. And why do the glamour games have to be neutral site? I know there's gaming. I know there's revenue in that. But what was more exciting than when Notre Dame came to Athens a few years ago? Those games should be on campus. Why are you spending so much money on your stadiums if you're not going to damn use them?
I just felt that the idea of playing, the small directional school. In the old days when you had Paul Johnson's office, you like to play Georgia Southern because they were running the option too. That was a nice kind of practice game for you.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm with you. I just don't see the interest. I know. Put it this way: I got season tickets for Florida State. I have, I'll go down there for the party because we never lose a party. There's always going to be 50,000 people. It'll be a good time. But you much prefer to see a better out-of-conference opponent. And even a couple of years, remember back in the early 2000s when Georgia would play people like Oklahoma State and Arizona State?
Right.
At least that was that was more interesting.
Also, I grew up, UCLA would come to Athens back in the day. Or even Cal. You get to see those. That's something different and interesting.
We do have the luxury of the Mercedes-Benz and the built-in connection with that ACC, SEC, Chick-fil-A kickoff game, which is usually pretty exciting, or it doesn't have to be. Like this year with Oregon, that was a springboard for Georgia, and away they go. But I'm with you. I'm excited about it. This is inevitable. It's going to be interesting to see, though. The bigger concern for me is, when you do look at Georgia and you look at the rest of this division, who's coming up now to catch Georgia in the East? Is it Tennessee? Is it Florida with Billy Napier?
South Carolina
With Shane Beamer. But
yeah.
You say Tennessee is going to be the guys, or you think Florida's going to be
I
the
still
guys?
think everybody's still a good bit behind Georgia. Not to saying on any given Saturday you could get beat, but I just don't see it. I think it's just Georgia and Alabama are just so far ahead of everybody else. Even Alabama is, considering what happened last year. I guarantee Alabama's going to be back.